One of the most common coverages from the NFL to the high school level is quarters. And in this video, we're going to take a deep dive into what it is, why teams play it, and how to beat it. Let's dive in. So quarters is a very generic term, so I want to clarify right off the bat what exactly we're going to be talking about. So some people consider quarters spot drop cover 4, but what we're going to be looking at in this video specifically is match quarters. We're talking about zone match, and we're going to go through the rules. Then we're going to go why teams play it and how to beat it. So every defense is a little bit different. So we're going to go pretty generic right here. But in general, when I'm thinking about quarters, I think about the corner being responsible for the vertical of number 1. Think about the safety being responsible for the vertical of number 2. And this goes for both sides. It's a mirrored coverage when we're thinking about cover 4 specifically. So one of the ways that I kind of break stuff down coverage wise is if we are going to run 4 verts, who is going to be picking up or who's going to be carrying the verticals. So with quarters and match quarters, the corner, like we said, is going to have number 1, and the safeties are going to carry the vertical of number 2. Then the underneath defenders are going to sort out the running back and the quarterback from there. Different systems call it different things. I'm pretty well versed in the Fangio system, and so cover 4 is what they call it from their base package. Quads is what they call it from their sub packages, being nickel and dime. Now, one coverage that often gets lumped in with quarters but is different is 2 read or palms coverage. Now, we'll talk about that one in another video. We're specifically looking at match quarters in this video. So again, corner taking number 1, safety taking number 2 if they were to go vertical. Even though we're talking about match rules, I still kind of like to draw up zones for coverage. It is still zone match. And so we've got our DBs playing deep, and our apex defenders are going to be the first to the flat. So if we're going to run like a fade out concept right here, the corner is going to carry the vertical of number 1. The SAM or the star is going to crash down on the out of number 2, whether it's the F or the Y. It would be the will if it were the Y. And then in the middle, the mic is playing off of the H. So if we end up getting some sort of a swing route here, the mic will be following that and be potentially pushing it, looking for maybe a slant coming in behind to trade that off with the SAM star. So that's a very, very brief overview of quarters coverage. We're going to get into more. We'll see more details as we get through and talk about different route combinations and things like that. But let's talk about why teams play it. So in my opinion, why teams play quarters is because it gives you really the best of both worlds. You know that you're going to be able to easily handle 4 verts with your corners and your safeties, but it's also a max fit, run fit coverage. Now this is in contrast to spot drop cover 4, which is not, and that's where these things sort of get confused. But if we're thinking about regular match quarters, it's actually a 9-man fit when we're thinking about spacing in the run fit. So in order to show that, I've drawn up just regular 21 personnel so we can really see the run fits. And what the run fit rule for the deep defenders is, in general, is if the player that you are responsible for on the vertical starts to block, then you join the run fit. So say, for example, I am the strong safety and we are going to see power. Now, as the strong safety, I'm responsible for the vertical of the tight end because he's the number 2 receiver. Once I see him down block on that defensive end, he is now not going vertical. He is in the run fit. He's in the blocking surface. And if we count, the defense has 7 in the box, and the blocking surface has 6 on the offensive line plus the fullback. So in the box is even. And defenses always want that extra fitter to be the unblocked player, and you can tell right here we are not accounting for the strong safety in the blocking scheme. So again, as the strong safety, I see the tight end blocked down on that defensive end. I have to now join the run fit. He's going to fit the alley right here, and he is the one the defense is planning on making this tackle in the alley between the kick out and the wrap. So if you're watching NFL, you're not going to see a ton of cover 4. We're not going to see a ton of quarters coverage on 3rd downs. That seems a little counterintuitive going back to spot drop days or if you think about playing Madden when you want to be in cover 4 so you can make sure that you get that 4 deep shell. But in modern defensive structure, quarters is actually a run stopping defense because the safeties can get involved in the run fit. So again, in my opinion, teams play it because we can align to any formation, we can put the umbrella, we can put the cap on top of any formation and any offense by being able to handle 4 verticals while also making sure that we can have unblocked players in the run fit. So now that we've got an idea of what quarters is and why teams play it, let's look at how to beat it. We'll start with the drop back game. Now my strategy for beating quarters in the drop back game is we want to threaten whatever line or whatever measure that the defense has decided to declare a vertical route. Some teams declare it at 7 yards. Some teams declare it at 5 vertical steps. We can see that on film, but whatever the defense decides becomes a vertical route to the point where we know that we are going to essentially get man-to-man late in the down with the corner on number 1 and the safeties on number 2, is we need to hit that checkpoint for the defense, and then we can play games from there. One of the best ways to do this, in my opinion, is mills. We're going to start with the basic by the number 2. So again, we're going to get past whatever that vertical line is for the defense. We're going to call that the hard deck. We're going to get past the hard deck for the defense, meaning that the safety is going to drive down on the dig because the F has declared as a vertical route. And when that safety drives down, it's going to open the post right behind him. On the backside, we would want to probably pair this with a shallow cross. So the expectation would be that the underneath defenders are going to drive on the shallow, safety is going to drive down on the dig, the basic, and then the post is going to be open right behind it. A similar concept to employ with mills is dagger. We're going to get the clear out by the number 2 and then the dig by the number 1. So the safety is going to end up having to carry the vertical here of the F, and then the X is going to break inside, and we should have some open space right here. So again, we want to pair this probably with a shallow from the other side to try and pull that Sam, that nickel down, if he doesn't end up also following the number 2. And if he does hang out in the hook window over here and sinks underneath the dig, then we have the shallow coming in right underneath it. So those two concepts, mills and dagger, really go hand in hand with the idea of trying to get the safety on the number 2 and then doing something to open up the number 1 in that void. The third drop back that we'll take a look at right now is post wheel. And what post wheel is going to allow us to do is really get the ball to our number 2 receiver. So the way against general quarters coverage rules this is going to work is now we don't have a vertical route by the number 2. He has not gone past 7 yards or whatever that line is. He's not threatening vertical at the snap. So what the safety is going to do now is he's going to look to the number 1. So the safety's rule is if number 2 goes in or out, he's getting eyes to number 1. He's going to look to rob the post dig curl so the corner can play more outside leverage there. And what this is going to end up doing is it's going to end up getting both the corner and the safety on the number 1, leaving the Sam star in the flat to carry the wheel. And what oftentimes happens is you can see the angle taken by the Sam here thinking that it's a flat route, and then now that route turns upfield on the sideline instead of the Sam carrying it from the top down, and this should be an easy pitch and catch for an explosive play up the sideline. Now oftentimes teams want to play press quarters, which is going to put the corner pressed on the number 1 receiver, as we can see, to the Z side, to the strong side on the right. And that can sometimes take away those different things. Lots of routes convert to a fade against that. It can make the dig or the post a little bit more difficult because you're generally going to be forced to get that outside release against the press corner. And one way that we can sort of get away from that is to form a stack and condense it. So we've got about a 5-yard split in between the tackle and the X right here with this 2-man stack. Because this stack is so close, there's no way that the corner is going to be pressed on number 1, especially if you offset the stack and put the F outside of him. A corner being inside right here, I don't know what the Sam would be doing, but this is just a recipe to get crack tossed to death on the outside, and that's not something that defenses are going to do. And if they are going to do that, then you probably don't need all these tricks to beat them anyway. But even from a condensed formation, all the same route concepts still work. And sometimes they can get even better when they're condensed because we can add in some switch releases. This is just mills with a widened post and an in-breaking basic here, but it's still going to give us that same idea of a vertical stretch on the strong safety. If he drives down to take this dig, then the post is open right behind him. Dagger can work the exact same way on a widened dig. X is going to clear out the strong safety. The F is probably, we're not going to let him get outside the corner here. We're going to threaten the inside the corner and then break it off as soon as he turns his hips there and we get to our route depth. Either way, we should have an opening right here. And if not, again, probably going to have some sort of shallow coming in underneath from the other side. Now, post wheel is probably not one that I would suggest from a condensed set. However, we do have the ability to run what Shanahan calls the tree concept that I really like from condensed. So tree is a play on branch, which is just fade out, and this is just a way to do it from a condensed formation. So we're going to get the X on a wide and go, and then the F is going to switch release and end up breaking out from here. So this wide and go is going to take at least the corner, potentially the safety based on what they decide on the switch release here. But we know that the Sam is never going to get outside leverage here. So once we snap this out, even if the safety drives on it pretty quickly, it's probably going to be too late for the defense to make a play. Another common way to try and attack quarters is by getting into trips or other 3x1 formations. And the reason that this is effective is because it messes with the backside safety. So remember that for quarters, the corner is responsible for number 1, the safeties are responsible for the vertical of number 2, but there is no number 2 over here for the free safety. Now, what a lot of teams will do is check to what Fangio calls Trix, a lot of people call solo or poach coverage, and that's going to poach the backside safety. Now to the front side of the concept, he can still play on the backside, but he's going to be responsible for the vertical of the number 3 receiver. But his rule stays the same. If his receiver doesn't go vertical, he's now going to be working back to the number 1 receiver on the X on the backside, trying to rob any in-breaking route from him. Now the best way to beat poach coverage, in my opinion, is to have a stud at X. So let's say that we're going to run 4 verts and we're going to get the safety poaching on the front side. He's got to come over to play the Y. Well, now we have one-on-one with the corner. If we have a stud at X so we can scout for a matchup to where we've got our best guy on their worst guy, that's a matchup we should take all night long. If you think back to the run and shoot, their mentality out of trips was we want to run X choice all night long until they make this free safety stay on the front side to help on the X. And then now we are back to our regular 3/3 concepts on the front side. So if I have a receiver that's better than their corner and I can figure out whether we can get him on a certain sideline, maybe he's always the left side corner or the right side corner, if we can get a matchup like that, then that is, in my opinion, the best way to beat solo coverage, just to make sure that he actually can handle playing him on an island. And if he can't, then we can exploit that. However, that is not always the case, and there are some different schematic things we can do to help take advantage of it as well. So the first one we'll look at is post wheel, but actually on the back side using the X and the H. Now we can do different things on the front side too, but we're just going to think about attacking this solo safety on this one. And what this is going to do is similar to post wheel earlier, is we're probably going to end up getting the free safety unless we run a vertical with the Y. We're going to get him getting underneath the post there, the corner staying on top of it, and then now the jack has to be the one to handle the wheel from the backfield, and that's going to cover all those same issues that we talked about when we were in a twins formation. Now it's not going to attack the vertical space the same way, but a route combination that I do like from 3x1 against quarters is actually going to be mesh rail. So we're going to get the running back on the rail. The X is going to be setting the mesh with the Y coming underneath it here. Then we can get a basic route by the F, and we can get a post route from the Z and sort of get mesh rail mills right here. So the running back would be first in the progression. What should happen here is we haven't talked about what happens if the corners man doesn't go vertical. So what should happen from a quarters defense here is the corners X, he's going under is what most people call it. He's not going vertical. He's not sitting outside on a hitch. He's going under, he's going in. So the corner should be sinking off to his zone. But what can oftentimes happen is he can chase this drag just a little bit too long to the point where the H can get outside of him. There's a little too much traffic here with the jack to track it, and then we can get the H over the top on the rail depending on what the free safety does. But the H on the rail is number 1. The Y is going to be the number 2 coming underneath. He's going to be under on the X. He's going to be the one that we are trying to set free from the mesh. And if the corner has fallen off for the rail, free safety assumed to take over the top as well. We're going to get that mesh pick right here on the jack. He should be springing open in the flat as the number 2 read in the progression. So again, maybe the rail has been capped by the corner and the free safety. Maybe the jack somehow made it through all this traffic. Now we have this open space in the middle of the formation. The last one we will take a look at against this coverage is what I call Dusty. And what we're going to do for Dusty is play on the relationship of the free safety to the number 3 receiver. Again, the free safety is responsible for the vertical of the number 3 right here, our Y. So what we're going to do is we're going to really out leverage him right here. What Dusty is we are going to get a double dig. So the corner has to take the Z, the strong safety has to drive on the F, but what we're going to do with the Y is we're going to run a corner. So if the strong safety drives down on the F right here, the free safety is responsible for the vertical of the tight end. There is no way that this concept can be handled. This is often a red zone concept because, again, we're not going to see a bunch of quarters on like third down and long especially. But in the red zone, this is a really good way when teams get ultra aggressive on the break to get an easy shot in the back corner of the end zone. The last coverage we'll talk about for quarters and how to beat it is what Fangio calls area. I believe Nick Saban calls it stump. Correct me if I'm wrong there. I'm not as well versed in Saban stuff, but this is one that Cody Alexander at matchquarters.com, he calls stress. So what area does is the corner still has the vertical of number 1, but now the nickel has the vertical of number 2, and the strong safety is going to have the vertical of number 3. Corner still has the number 1 backside. So what this does is it allows the defense to stay 2 over 1 on the X receiver. So let's say that you have a stud at X and the defense doesn't want to let the corner alone on him. They want to at least keep a 2 over 1 on him. This would be a potential option for the defense as far as what coverage they can play whenever we get to trips. Now, this would be my preferred way if I were a defensive coordinator to play trips from quarters. And the reason is if we don't get 4 vertical routes, then it's going to turn back into quarters. So how this is going to work is the corner is reading number 1 to number 2. The strong safety is reading number 3 to number 2. And the nickel, the Sam, is reading number 2. Everybody's reading number 2. So let's say that the number 1 and the number 3 go vertical, and we'll just say the F runs a flat. Well, this is going to turn into quarters. The strong safety has the deep quarter, the corner has the deep quarter, and the nickel has the flat. All right, a really common middle field open beater, especially from trips, is smash with a seam by the number 3. So let's look at how it plays out. So we're going to put the Z on the hitch, the F on the corner, and then the Y on the streak. So the corner has an underneath route. His receiver didn't go vertical, so he's going to get to his deep quarter, covering the corner. He's going to let the Sam know that there is somebody in the flat. So the Sam is going to get over here in the flat, and then again, the strong safety is going to man the vertical of the number 3. So we can do this with a ton of concepts, but no matter which way you slice it, if we get anything other than 4 verticals or at least 3 verticals on the trip side, it's going to turn back into regular quarters. Now how we beat it is just what we've been doing the whole video. We've talked about how to beat quarters. Well, let's just adapt some of our concepts to go from 2-man concepts to 3. We'll start with mills. We got the post by number 1, got the dig by number 2. Well, remember we had the shallow coming from the other side. Instead of a shallow, we can run a flat route. All we're doing is attacking the same space from a different formation. So what will be happening here is the Sam, the nickel, is going to be taking the flat route. Ideally, the safety, again, is going to just drive on the dig, and we've got the post open right behind it. Remember, the free safety isn't going to be a factor back here. He's going to be doing something with the X on the backside. The defense decided that they wanted him on the backside. That's why they're playing this coverage. We can do the same thing with Dagger. We can run the streak with the number 2, and we can run the dig with the number 1. Again, safety carrying the vertical of number 2. So when the safety carries the vertical of number 2, the Sam, the nickel, is going to handle the flat. There we have our space for the dig in the Dagger concept. The other one we talked about was post wheel, and this one's going to get really interesting because it's not one that has vertical routes declaring early in the down. So the corner is going to see his receiver go vertical, so he's going to carry him and stay on top of it. Strong safety, remember he is keying number 3 first. Okay, well number 3 goes out, so what do we do then? Get our eyes to number 2. Okay, well he went out 2, and a safety's base rule here is going to tell him to get to his zone, his quarter, and now he's going to be sinking underneath 1. Now what a defense should do, in my opinion, to play this is they've got to have some sort of thing they've practiced throughout the week that's going to tell the safety to tell the corner to get over to handle the wheel, and now the safety is going to take over the post. But that's a lot of post-snap communication for one concept. So again, what's likely going to happen, probably going to end up getting 2 on the post, and then the Sam obviously can't cover the wheel and the flat, so we're going to get somebody open there. Now, one other thing that we can do that's going to attack all match coverages, not just quarters, is to get into 4 strong or quads looks. And we can do this with our very same concepts. All we're going to do is, instead of running a flat route or a bubble with the number 3, he's going to block for a lead swing for the running back. So we can run our same concepts. We can run Dagger, we can run mills, but instead of just having 3 receivers to account for, the offense has 4. And if you want to learn more about that, I'll talk about it if you click on the screen and watch this next video.